Be me Alara, 26 years old, living my best life in the city. Got a decent job in marketing, a nice little apartment that costs way too much, and a solid circle of friends. My life philosophy, especially when it comes to dating, is what I considered modern and empowered. I'd read all the books, listen to all the podcasts. The message was clear: prioritize yourself, don't settle, and never let a man define your worth. I took it to heart, maybe a little too much. My dating life was a revolving door of guys who were exciting. Artists with commitment issues, finance bros who thought owning a Patagonia vest was a personality trait, musicians who would write a song about you and then ghost you. It was a mess, but it was my mess. It made for good stories. My two pillars through all of this were Chloe and Liam. Chloe was my closest friend since we were awkward teenagers trying to figure out eyeliner. She knew everything about me, my triumphs, my insecurities, my ridiculously high Starbucks order. She was the sensible one, a landscape architect who was practical, kind, and had this calm energy that could diffuse a bomb. Then there was Liam. Liam was my guy, my buddy, my rock. We met in college. He was in my senior year creative writing class. He was smart, funny in a quiet, observant way, and incredibly reliable. He was the one I called when my IKEA furniture collapsed, when a terrible date left me stranded downtown, or when I just needed to vent for an hour about my boss. He was, in my carefully constructed worldview, the safe option. The guy you keep in your back pocket for a rainy day. The one you'd theoretically settle down with if all the thrilling, chaotic options fizzled out by age 35. It sounds horrible when I say it like that now, but back then, it felt like smart emotional planning. I genuinely believed I was being a savvy, independent woman. I convinced myself that I was keeping him in the friend zone for his own good, because I was too wild and untamable for a sweet, stable guy like him. The truth is, I was just selfish. I liked the attention. I liked knowing there was a constant, a safety net that would always be there to catch me. Liam was a software developer, worked from home a lot, and was just comfortable. He had a dog, a golden retriever named Buddy. He made his own sourdough bread. He remembered my coffee order and would have it waiting for me if we met up. He was perfect, and that's why I couldn't be with him. Perfect was boring, my 26-year-old brain reasoned. I needed passion, drama, a little bit of emotional turbulence to feel alive. Chloe always listened patiently to my dating woes. She'd sit on my couch sipping tea as I recounted some new disaster with a guy named Kyle or Josh or Brandon. Chloe: Alara, why do you keep going for these guys? You know how it's going to end. Me: I know, but it's the thrill of the chase, and when it's good, it's really good. Chloe: for like a week, then you're back here eating ice cream and cursing his entire family line. She was right, of course. And often after my debrief with Chloe, I'd call Liam. He'd listen too, but from a different angle. He wouldn't just coddle me, he'd offer practical advice, which I'd promptly ignore. Liam: maybe you should try dating someone who asks you questions about your day instead of just talking about his crypto portfolio. Me: you're right, you're so right, but he's got this jawline, Liam. You haven't seen it. Liam, with a sigh I could hear through the phone: I'm sure it's a spectacular jawline, Alara. This was our dynamic, a perfect, dysfunctional little triangle. Me at the center, orbiting between the chaos I craved and the stability I took for granted. The shift started subtly, so subtly I didn't even notice it at first. It began with my 30th birthday approaching. A milestone that felt less like a celebration and more like a deadline. The exciting guys were starting to feel less exciting and more exhausting. The drama was less thrilling and more draining. I was getting tired of the games, tired of the emotional whiplash. One Friday night, I had a particularly awful date. The guy, a freelance photographer, spent 2 hours talking about his vision and then tried to get me to split the bill on the single appetizer we shared. I went home fuming. I did my usual routine, called Chloe first, ranted for 20 minutes. She made all the right sympathetic noises, then I called Liam. Me: Liam, you will not believe the night I had. This guy was a walking red flag, a whole parade of red flags. Liam: let me guess, he used the word muse unironically. Me laughing despite my mood. Worse, he said my aura was a challenging spectrum of beige. I heard him chuckle, but it sounded distant. There was music in the background. Me, what are you up to? Are you out? Liam, oh yeah, Chloe and I are trying out that new board game cafe downtown. A weird little pause. Me, oh, cool. You guys went without me? It sounded childish as soon as I said it. We weren't attached at the hip. They were allowed to hang out. Liam, it was a last-minute thing. Chloe had a coupon. You know how she is with coupons. I laughed it off, but a strange feeling pricked at me. It wasn't jealousy, not yet. It was more like confusion, a disruption in the matrix. Liam and Chloe were my friends, but they were my friends separately. They were polite to each other at my birthday parties or group hangouts, but they weren't board game cafe friends. Over the next few months, the disruptions continued. I'd text in our group chat, anyone for a movie Saturday, and Chloe would reply, can't, sorry. Liam and I are doing that 5,000 for charity we signed up for. Or I'd call Liam on a Sunday morning for our traditional coffee and complain session. Me, hey, what's up? I need to tell you about this nightmare email my boss sent. Liam, hey, can I call you back in a bit? I'm just helping Chloe build her new garden beds. Garden beds, a 5,000 board games. It was like they were collecting wholesome hobbies together. It was bizarre. I started paying more attention. When the three of us did hang out, their dynamic had changed. They had inside jokes. They'd give each other a look across the table, a silent communication I wasn't privy to. Once, Liam mentioned a book he'd just finished, and Chloe immediately jumped in. Oh, I know. Wasn't the twist with the detective's brother just devastating? They had started a two-person book club. My two-person book club. The one I had been trying to start with Chloe for years, but I was always too busy. The pricking feeling was evolving. It was morphing into a dull, throbbing ache I didn't want to name. I tried to rationalize it. It was good that my two best friends were becoming friends. It made logistical sense. It was efficient. But it didn't feel efficient. It felt like a threat. I started to feel like a third wheel in my own life. One evening, the three of us were at my apartment, supposed to be having a movie night. I had picked the movie, some pretentious foreign film that I knew they'd both hate but would make me seem cultured. Halfway through, I noticed they weren't even watching. They were whispering on the other end of the couch, heads close together. Liam was showing her something on his phone. Chloe let out a quiet, genuine laugh. It was a sound I knew well, but in that context, directed at him, it felt alien. I paused the movie. The silence was loud. Me. Am I interrupting something? The tone was sharper than I intended. They both looked up, surprised. Chloe. Oh, sorry, Alara. Liam was just showing me pictures of Buddy at the dog park. He made a new friend, a corgi. Liam held up his phone to show me. A blurry photo of his golden retriever sniffing a corgi's butt. Liam, his name is Sir Reginald Fluffington III. Can you believe it? They both started laughing again. I forced a smile. Hilarious! The mood was broken. The easy comfort we used to have was gone, replaced by a tense, awkward energy. We finished the movie in silence. As they were leaving, standing by my door, Liam mentioned he was heading out of town the next weekend for a hiking trip. Me, oh, cool, where are you going? Liam, up to the national park, just for a couple of days. Get some fresh air. Chloe, pulling on her coat. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I've never been camping before, can you believe it? Liam's promised he'll handle the tent situation so I don't accidentally trap myself in it. My stomach dropped. They were going away together for a whole weekend. They stood there smiling, completely oblivious to the catastrophe unfolding in my head. Me, you two are going camping together. Chloe, yeah, it was his idea. He said I needed to disconnect from the city for a bit. Liam nodded, smiling at her. It was a soft, fond smile. A smile I had seen him give me 100 times, but seeing it directed at her felt like a punch to the gut. I just stood there, speechless, as they said their goodbyes and walked down the hall. I closed my apartment door and leaned against it, my heart pounding in my ears. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was not part of the plan. Liam was my safety net. He wasn't supposed to be someone else's adventure. The camping trip was a turning point, for them and for me. While they were gone, I was a wreck. I kept checking my phone, compulsively scrolling through their social media, even though I knew they'd have no signal. I imagined them hiking through sun-dappled forests, sharing a thermos of coffee, sitting by a crackling campfire under the stars. The images in my head were painfully romantic, like something out of a cheesy movie. And it was driving me insane. I realized I knew nothing about Liam's passion for hiking. He'd mentioned it, sure, but I had always brushed it off. Me, you're going to walk up a hill for fun. Call me when you get back to civilization. But Chloe, she was interested. She was probably asking him about different types of trees and bird calls. She was participating in his life in a way I never had. When they got back, they were different. They seemed closer, more comfortable with each other. There was a new ease in their interactions. Chloe was glowing. She told me all about it, her voice full of genuine excitement. Chloe. Ilara, it was amazing. I saw a deer, and Liam taught me how to build a proper fire, and at night you can see so many stars, it's like a completely different sky. I tried to be happy for her, I really did, me. Wow, sounds rustic, but my voice was flat, lifeless. The panic was setting in, a cold, creeping dread that coiled in my stomach. My carefully laid plans for the future, my just-in-case scenario, was walking away with my best friend. I decided I had to do something. I had to remind Liam of his place, my place. I started a campaign of subtle, pathetic sabotage. I began inviting Liam to do things, just the two of us, like we used to, me. Hey, that indie band you love is playing downtown on Friday. Want to go? Liam, oh man, I'd love to, but Chloe and I are taking a pottery class on Friday nights now. A pottery class, of course they were. They were probably recreating the scene from Ghost. The thought made me physically ill. I tried to wedge myself into their plans. Chloe, Liam and I are going to the farmer's market on Saturday morning if you want to join. Me. Sure, but being there was torture. They had a routine. They knew which stalls had the best tomatoes, they bantered with the old man who sold honey, they bought fresh flowers for Chloe's apartment. I was just trailing behind them, a ghost haunting their perfect Saturday morning. I tried to pull Chloe aside to voice my concerns. We were having coffee, just the two of us, for the first time in what felt like forever. Me. So what's the deal with you and Liam? I tried to sound casual, breezy. Chloe stirred her latte, not meeting my eyes. Chloe, what do you mean, we're friends, we're just hanging out? Me, it just seems like you're hanging out a lot. Like all the time. Chloe, he's a good guy, Ilara, he's fun to be around, you know that. Me, yeah, I know, he's my friend. The emphasis on my was embarrassingly obvious. Chloe finally looked at me, her expression was unreadable. Chloe, he's my friend too. The conversation stalled after that. A wall had gone up between us, one I had no idea how to tear down. The breaking point came a few weeks later. It was a Thursday night. I had once again been unceremoniously dumped, this time by a guy who was a narrative consultant, whatever that means. He told me our story arcs weren't aligned. I was devastated, but in a familiar, almost comforting way. This was my territory, bad dates and heartbreak, and I knew just what to do. I called Liam, expecting him to drop everything and come over with a pizza and a six-pack of my favorite beer, ready to listen to me cry and tell me I was too good for that pretentious idiot. It was our ritual, but he didn't answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. I texted him, emergency, need you. An hour went by, nothing. The panic was back, sharp and acidic. He always answered. Always, I called Chloe. Maybe she knew where he was. She answered on the second ring, her voice breathless and happy. Chloe, Ilara, hey, what's up? Me, have you heard from Liam? I can't reach him. Chloe, oh yeah, he's with me. We're at his place. We're making dinner. Of course they were, probably making something artisanal and complicated from scratch. Me, my voice cracking. Oh, can I talk to him? Chloe, oblivious. Sure, hold on. Liam, it's Ilara. I heard shuffling, muffled voices. Then Liam's voice came on the line. He sounded annoyed. Liam, hey, Ilara, what's wrong? Chloe said it's an emergency. Me. Daniel broke up with me. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear Chloe say something softly in the background. Liam, his voice tired. I'm sorry to hear that, Ilara, that sucks. It was the standard line, the polite response. It wasn't the Liam response. The Liam response was, I'm on my way, pepperoni or veggie, me. That's it. That sucks, Liam. What do you want me to say? I told you he was a jerk from the start. Me, I thought you'd, I don't know. Come over, another pause, this one was heavier. Liam, I can't tonight, I'm busy. Busy. He was busy making dinner with Chloe. He was choosing their cozy night in over my manufactured crisis. Something inside me snapped. It was the culmination of months of anxiety, of feeling left out, of losing control. Me, what is going on with you two? Are you sleeping together or something? The accusation hung in the air, ugly and venomous. Silence. Complete and total silence from his end. Then Chloe's voice, quiet and hurt. "Ilara, why would you say that?" She had been on speakerphone. She had heard everything. My blood ran cold. I had gone too far. Liam, his voice dangerously calm. "I think you should go, Ilara. We'll talk tomorrow." He didn't say it. He didn't have to. I knew what was happening. They weren't just friends. They were falling in love. And in my selfish panic, I had just made myself the villain in their story. He hung up. I sat there in my silent apartment, the phone still pressed to my ear. The emergency wasn't that Daniel had broken up with me. The emergency was that my safety net was gone, and I had been the one to set it on fire. The next few days were a blur of misery. I didn't leave my apartment. I ignored calls from my mom. I let work emails pile up. I just replayed that phone call over and over in my head, each time cringing at my own words. The accusation I had hurled at them wasn't born out of a genuine question. It was a weapon. I had tried to make their connection sound cheap and sordid, to shame them back into their designated roles in my life. Chloe, my loyal confidant, Liam, my ever-present backup plan. The silence from both of them was deafening. No texts, no calls. I had managed to alienate the two most important people in my life in a single, ugly sentence. On Sunday evening, there was a knock on my door. I ignored it. It was probably just a delivery for a neighbor. The knocking persisted, then a voice. "Ilara, it's me, it's Chloe, please open the door." My heart hammered against my ribs. I didn't want to face her. I was too ashamed, but she didn't give up. She just kept knocking, her voice soft but firm. Finally, I dragged myself off the couch and opened the door. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. She wasn't angry, just sad, which was somehow worse. She walked past me into the apartment and sat on the couch, the same spot where she had listened to me complain 1,000 times. I stood by the door, hugging myself, waiting for the yelling, the lecture. "Chloe, are you okay?" Her question was so gentle, so full of genuine concern that it broke me. I started crying. Not pretty, delicate tears, but ugly, heaving sobs. I collapsed onto the armchair opposite her and cried until I couldn't breathe. She just waited. She didn't try to comfort me. She just let me get it all out. When I was finally finished, hiccuping and gasping, she spoke. "Chloe, Liam and I are together, Ilara, romantically." I nodded, wiping my face with the back of my hand. "I know, Chloe. It wasn't planned, it just happened. It started when you were complaining about one of those guys. I can't even remember his name. You hung up and Liam and I stayed on the phone, talking. We realized we were both exhausted from worrying about you." Ouch. The truth was a physical blow. "Chloe, we started talking more, just the two of us. We realized we had a lot in common. Books, hiking, a love for terrible puns. It was easy. It was nice to be with someone who wasn't constantly in the middle of a self-inflicted storm." Double ouch. "Chloe, we didn't tell you because we were scared. We knew you'd react. We just didn't think you'd react like that." Me, my voice raspy. "What I said was horrible, Chloe. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it." "Chloe, I know you didn't mean it literally, but you meant to hurt us. Why?" I didn't have an answer, not a real one. Me, "I don't know. I was scared. I felt like I was losing you both." "Chloe, you were never going to lose us as friends. But you can't keep people in little boxes, Ilara. You can't assign them roles in your life and expect them to stay there forever. Liam isn't a backup plan. He's a person, with his own feelings, his own needs." She had said the words. Backup plan, hearing them out loud from her mouth made me feel sick. Me, "I never called him that." "Chloe, no, not out loud, but that's how you treated him, the safe option. The guy you'd call when all the exciting ones let you down. Did you ever once think about how that made him feel?" I hadn't. I honestly hadn't. In my quest for self-empowerment, I had completely objectified him. I had turned him into an emotional support animal instead of a human being. He wasn't a man with his own hopes and dreams. He was a utility, my utility, and Chloe, my best friend. I had seen her happiness not as something to celebrate, but as a personal threat to my own security. The feminist ideals I thought I was living by were just a shield for my own deep-seated selfishness and insecurity. I wanted control. I wanted all the options to be mine, to be available at my convenience. Me, "I'm a terrible person." "Chloe, no, you're not. You're just lost. You got so caught up in this idea of what your life should look like, full of drama and grand gestures, that you missed the real thing right in front of you." We sat in silence for a long time. Me, is he furious with me? Chloe. He's not furious, he's just deeply hurt. You were one of his best friends, Alara, and he found out that you saw him as a consolation prize. The finality in her voice was devastating. It was a friendship I had broken, and I didn't know if it could ever be fixed. Chloe stood up to leave. Chloe, I hope you can figure things out, Alara, for your own sake. And I hope one day you can be happy for us. She left, closing the door gently behind her. I was alone again, but this time the solitude felt different. It wasn't just loneliness, it was a reckoning. I had to face the person I had become, and I didn't like her at all. The conversation with Chloe was the rock bottom I desperately needed. For the first time, I looked at my life without the filters of self-pity and entitlement. I saw a pattern of behavior that was not only hurting others but was making me miserable. I was chasing a fantasy, a highlight reel of a life, while ignoring the real, quiet moments of happiness that were available to me all along. The next week, I did something I had never done before. I called a therapist. My first session was terrifying. I sat there trying to explain my twisted logic about safe options and exciting men to a stranger. But the therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Anya Sharma, just listened patiently. Dr. Sharma, it sounds like you've been operating from a place of fear, Alara. Fear of being alone, fear of making the wrong choice, fear of being boring. She was right. My entire dating life was a performance. I was trying to prove to some imaginary audience that I was interesting, desirable, and not at all boring. I started going to therapy every week. We unpacked everything. My relationship with my parents, my anxieties about my career, my deep-seated belief that a stable, loving relationship was something you settled for, not something you chose. It was hard work. There were sessions where I just cried. There were sessions where I got angry and defensive. But slowly, things started to change. I started to build a life for myself that wasn't dependent on male validation. I deleted the dating apps, all of them. I started focusing on my job not just as a way to pay my rent, but as something I could be good at. I pitched a new campaign idea, and to my shock, my boss loved it. I was put in charge of the project. I reconnected with old hobbies. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. My apartment slowly filled with canvases of clumsy but colorful landscapes. I made new friends, people from my yoga class and my painting workshop. Friendships that weren't tangled up in a decade of complicated history. I learned to enjoy my own company. I'd go to the movies by myself, eat at restaurants alone with a book, and take long walks through the city just listening to music. I was becoming a person I actually liked. A person who didn't need a safety net because she was learning to fly on her own. I gave Chloe and Liam their space. I didn't call or text. About 2 months after my breakdown, I got a text from Chloe. Hey, Liam and I are having a housewarming for our new place on Saturday. We'd really like it if you came. They had moved in together. My first instinct was to say no, to hide. It felt too soon, too raw. But then Dr. Sharma's voice echoed in my head. Avoidance is a temporary solution, Alara. Growth happens when you face the things that scare you. So I texted back, I'd love to. What can I bring? Walking up to their new apartment building was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My hands were sweating. I was carrying a bottle of wine in one hand and a ridiculously oversized ficus plant in the other, a peace offering. I took a deep breath and rang the bell. Liam opened the door. We hadn't spoken since that awful phone call. We hadn't even seen each other. He looked good, happy. There was a calmness in his eyes I'd never seen before. He smiled at me. A small, cautious smile. Liam, hey Alara, I'm glad you could make it. Me, hey, this is for you guys. I awkwardly shoved the plant towards him. He laughed, a real laugh. Wow. We're going to need a bigger apartment. He took it from me and led me inside. The apartment was beautiful, filled with light, books, and plants, now including one giant ficus. It felt like them. It felt like a home. Chloe came out of the kitchen and gave me a warm, genuine hug. Chloe, you came, I'm so glad. The party was in full swing. It was a mix of their friends, some I knew, some I didn't. I watched them all night. Not in a creepy, jealous way, but with a newfound clarity. I watched how they moved around each other, a silent, effortless dance. How he would refill her drink without her asking, how she would brush his hair off his forehead. The small, intimate gestures of a couple truly in love. There was no drama, no games, no emotional turmoil, just a deep, abiding affection. It wasn't boring, it was beautiful. Later in the evening, I found myself alone with Liam in the kitchen. He was loading the dishwasher. Liam, having a good time, me, yeah, I am, your place is amazing, you guys seem really happy. Liam, we are, an awkward silence settled between us. I knew I had to say it. Me, Liam, I am so sorry for everything, for how I treated you, for what I said. There's no excuse for it. You were my friend and I used you. I took your kindness for granted and I was a terrible friend. You deserved so much better. He stopped what he was doing and leaned against the counter, looking at me. Liam, thank you for saying that. It did hurt. A lot. Me. I know, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. He was quiet for a moment, then he gave me that same soft, fond smile he used to give me, but this time it was different. It was purely platonic. The smile of a friend, Liam. I forgive you, Alara. I was angry for a long time, but I get it. We were all young and stupid, just trying to figure things out. Tears welled up in my eyes. I don't feel like I deserve that. Liam, well, you've got it. Chloe and I, we miss you. We miss our friend. He pushed a stray strand of hair out of my face, a brotherly gesture. Liam, you look different, by the way. You look peaceful. I did feel peaceful. I stayed at the party for another hour, talking with people, laughing at jokes. For the first time, I felt like I was a part of their world again, but in a new, healthier way. I was no longer the center of their universe. I was a friend on the sidelines, cheering them on, and it felt right. A year and a half later, I was standing in a beautiful, sun-drenched garden holding a bouquet of flowers. I was wearing a simple, elegant bridesmaid dress. The color was a soft sage green. Chloe looked breathtaking in her wedding dress. She was radiant, glowing with a happiness that seemed to light up the entire garden. Liam stood at the altar, looking at her as if she was the only person in the world. He was crying, but he was smiling at the same time. I was Chloe's maid of honor. When she had asked me 6 months prior, I had been shocked. Me, are you sure after everything? Chloe, I've never been more sure. You're my oldest friend, Alara. You've been there for the worst times, and I want you there for the best one. During the ceremony, I stood there and watched them say their vows. They had written their own, and they were perfect. Full of inside jokes, heartfelt promises, and a love that was so palpable you could feel it in the air. I didn't feel a single pang of jealousy, not a trace of regret. All I felt was an overwhelming sense of joy and love for these two people. I saw their relationship not as something I had lost, but as something beautiful that I got to witness. During my maid of honor speech at the reception, I was terrified, but I knew what I had to say. I talked about my long friendship with Chloe, our awkward teenage years, our shared dreams, and then I talked about Liam. Me. I have known Liam for almost a decade, and I can tell you that he is one of the kindest, most decent human beings I have ever met. For a long time, I didn't appreciate that kindness. I didn't see it for the strength that it was. I looked over at him. He was watching me, his eyes shining me. But Chloe, she saw it. She saw him for exactly who he was, and he in turn saw her. They see each other. And they bring out the absolute best in each other. My voice broke a little, but I kept going. Me, seeing them together has taught me so much about what love really is. It's not about drama or excitement. It's about showing up. It's about building garden beds on a Sunday morning and making each other laugh with stupid puns and holding each other's hand through the quiet, ordinary moments. What they have is real. It's the kind of love we all hope to find. I raised my glass. To Chloe and Liam, my best friends, may your life together be as beautiful and as full of love as you are. The room erupted in applause. Chloe and Liam came over and gave me a huge group hug. Later that night, I was sitting at a table, just watching everyone dance. A man I recognized from Liam's work sat down next to me. His name was Ben. That was a beautiful speech. Me, thanks, it came from the heart. Ben, they're a great couple, me, the best. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the happy couple on the dance floor. Ben, so, the maid of honor. Are you seeing anyone? A few years ago, that question would have sent me into a spiral. I would have felt the pressure to have an interesting answer, to perform, to be desirable. But now I just smiled. Me. No, I'm not. It wasn't a sad admission. It was just a fact, and I was okay with that fact. Ben, Well, if you're not busy next week, would you maybe want to get a coffee or, I don't know, go for a walk up a hill? I hear that's fun. He was referencing my speech. He had been listening. I looked at him. He had a kind smile. He wasn't my type, my old type anyway. He seemed nice, stable. And for the first time in my life, that didn't scare me. It felt promising. I'd like that very much. I didn't know what would happen with Ben. Maybe we'd go on one date and that would be it. Maybe we'd become friends. Maybe it would be something more, but I wasn't worried. My future was no longer a script I had to follow. My happiness wasn't waiting for me in a safe option or an exciting fling. I had already found it. It was in my friendships, in my work, in my clumsy paintings, in my ability to stand on my own 2 feet. I had spent so much of my life panicking about finding the right person, I had never stopped to become the right person myself. Watching my 2 best friends get married wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning.